The Chargers are stepping into a week where soft talk just is not enough anymore. Minicamp is coming up, Mike McDaniel is reshaping the offense, Ladd McConkey has been pushed away from the center of the practice buzz, a rebuilt defensive line needs real punch, Najee Harris is trying to rebuild his career away from Los Angeles, and Khalil Mack is chasing history. This roster is being tested by identity, health, and pressure. If you want analysis that does not excuse wasted opportunity, subscribe right now, because today's conversation is coming sharp, straight into the offense, because this is not something to whisper about. The Chargers are only days away from finishing OTAs and moving into mandatory minicamp from June 16th through the 18th, and what Mike McDaniel is putting on the table does not feel like some cosmetic tweak. It feels like an attempt to pull this offense out of that comfortable place where talent becomes pretty promises and nobody pays the price later. Everybody already knows the run game is moving toward wide zone. That is not a secret. The whole league can look at Los Angeles and say, they want to run laterally, stretch the defense, create cutback lanes, and punish hesitation. Fine, but the part that really sets off the alarm is the passing game. Justin Herbert is working on new footwork. Receivers are being coached to come out of their breaks already looking for the ball, because if that head is late, a missile is coming. And when you have a quarterback with that kind of arm, there is no excuse for an offense to live in handcuffs. The point is simple. McDaniel likes getting playmakers the ball in space. Quick throws, favorable angles, defenders turning around and chasing, yards after the catch. That changes everything for Quentin Johnston, who already showed in college that he can be dangerous in that kind of role and has flashed it in the NFL. It also explains the buzz around Trey Harris during OTAs. But then comes the question that keeps bothering me. What about Ladd McConkey? McConkey has spent a good chunk of practices working off to the side. Since there is no official injury report this time of year, nobody can lock in the exact reason. The fact that he is on the field helps calm the panic, but while other guys are showing up in team drills, his name is getting a little less noise. And I am not buying the idea of letting this dude turn into a footnote. Not in this system. Ladd has been the Chargers' king of yards after the catch over the last 2 seasons. He is fast, he ran under 4.4 in the 40 at the 2024 Combine. He separates with technique, and he still finished tied for 12th in ESPN's open score in 2025, right there with Davante Adams and ahead of Jalen Waddle. That is not a side note, that is ammunition. Look at the history. With McDaniel calling plays, Deebo Samuel exploded in YAC and total yards in 2021. Tyreek Hill did the same in 2023. So if McDaniel's expectation is for every receiver in that room to have a career year, McConkey cannot be forgotten. He might be the perfect blade in this offense. If Los Angeles wants to punish the zones it saw on more than 81% of snaps in 2025, Ladd needs to get back to the middle of the plan and make those defenses pay hard. And moving away from the shine of the offense, we go right to the place a lot of fans only notice once the problem is already blown up, the middle of the defense. Because while everybody is debating left guard, the safety rotation, cornerback, tight end, and wide receiver, there is a quieter story that could decide games in January. The Chargers' defensive line has been patched, reshaped, and now it has to become a real force, not just a group surviving on effort. Los Angeles lost Deshaun Hand and Otito Ogbonnia. That is not a small amount of volume. Hand played 56% of the defensive snaps last season. Ogbonnia played 25%. That creates space, responsibility, and pressure. The response came with Dalvin Tomlinson in free agency, Nick Barrett through the draft, and the extension for Teair Tart. On paper, the logic makes sense. Bring in size, add versatility, and keep a defender who can be an aggressive piece inside. But paper does not tackle running backs on 3rd and 2. What matters to me here is the plan from Chris O'Leary with Mike Elson. Using interior linemen differently, letting certain guys play wider and attack the backfield, is exactly the kind of adjustment that separates a passive defense from a defense that bothers people. And that is where Jamaree Caldwell enters as a name way too many people are saying too quietly. Caldwell was strong as a rookie. He already showed he can hold up against the run, but the part that makes me raise an eyebrow is the possibility of letting that body loose from wider alignments. In college, especially at Houston in 2023, he had 6.5 sacks. Then he transferred to Oregon. The production dropped hard, and part of that read comes back to heavier usage at nose tackle. So maybe the issue was never the motor. Maybe it was the address. With the Chargers, he still took 104 of his 486 defensive snaps at nose tackle, according to Pro Football Focus. If Nick Barrett is not ready to immediately take over a rotational role there, Caldwell may have to slide back into that job at times. But if Los Angeles wants to get the most out of him, they cannot just throw the player into heavy traffic and ask for a miracle. He has strength, he has athleticism, and he can be a lot more dangerous when he is lined up wider, especially with Teair Tart demanding attention on the other side. And here comes the aggressive demand. The Chargers cannot live off famous edge rushers and expect the interior to figure it out on the fly. The AFC has quarterbacks who destroy clean pockets. If the middle of the line does not push, does not close lanes, does not force urgency, the entire defense pays for it. Caldwell has a real chance to take that second-year jump, but Los Angeles needs to put him in position to attack, not just occupy space. Because if this group becomes truly disruptive, the whole defense changes temperature. Then there are stories you cannot turn into cheap shots. Najee Harris became one of those situations that leaves a bad taste, because the idea made sense, the excitement was real, and then the season just ripped the script out of the Chargers' hands. The 2025 offense had already been crushed by injuries, with Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt basically out for the whole year, Khalil Mack missing time, Justin Herbert dealing with a hand issue and still trying to carry the team. In the middle of all that chaos, Harris's Achilles tear in Week 3 got kind of buried. It should not have. When Los Angeles signed Harris to a one-year, $5.25 million deal, the read was clear. Put an experienced runner next to rookie Omarion Hampton and give the offense a real physical base. But Harris finished with only 15 carries for 61 yards. Not because he lacked a resume, not because he lacked will, but because his body broke down too early. After 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons with the Pittsburgh Steelers, that ending was brutal for him and useless for the Chargers. And I will say it straight, the franchise cannot stay trapped in what might have been. The backfield changed. Kimani Vidal emerged. Keaton Mitchell arrived. Hampton is still part of the roster vision, and Los Angeles has to build 2026 around players who are available, explosive, and fitted to the current plan. Rooting for Najee does not mean asking the Chargers to reopen a door that already looks closed. It means recognizing that the guy deserves another chance in this league. Harris visited the Seahawks and Raiders in March, but both teams made moves in the draft. Seattle took Tadarian Price near the end of the first round. Las Vegas grabbed Mike Washington Jr. in the 4th and also added Roman Hemby as an undrafted player. Still, depth charts change fast this time of year. The Seahawks, Steelers, Titans, and Packers could all end up looking at him depending on health, depth, and need by the time training camp rolls around. And I know fans sometimes want to treat every exit like a total breakup, but it does not have to be that way. Harris did not work in Los Angeles because the season never let it happen. The demand on the Chargers is different. Learn from it. Running back depth is not a luxury when you are trying to survive in the AFC. Bolt fam, drop it in the comments. Did the Chargers do the right thing by moving forward? Or was there still room for one last shot with Najee? Then we get to Khalil Mack, and the conversation shifts to another level. Because some players enter a season trying to prove they still belong in the league. Mack enters this one trying to climb an all-time NFL list. That is not trivia. That is a defender who has wrecked quarterbacks for 3 different franchises and is still in Los Angeles with a chance to push his own name into the official top 25 in career sacks. Ever since the then Oakland Raiders made him the 5th overall pick in 2014, Mack has been a weekly problem for offenses. 4 sacks as a rookie, then that ridiculous 15-sack explosion in year 2, awards, Pro Bowls, All-Pro selections, and the Defensive Player of the Year award in 2016. He dominated with the Raiders, kept causing damage with the Chicago Bears, and since arriving with the Chargers in 2022, he has added 36.5 more sacks to the total, including that 17-sack season in 2023, with 6 in one game against the Raiders. That is not just production. That is competitive violence with a resume. He is back with the Bolts now on another one-year deal, at 35 years old, with 113 official career sacks. That number has Mack tied for 29th on the official list since 1982, right next to Sean Jones. To reach the 25th spot, currently held by Calais Campbell at 117, he is 4 sacks away. But this chase is not standing still. Campbell is still active. TJ Watt has 115. Danielle Hunter has 114.5. So Mack is not chasing a frozen plaque on the wall. He is chasing history while other monsters are still moving too. That is exactly why this matters for the 2026 Chargers. If Mack still has enough juice to pressure that list, Los Angeles cannot treat him like a decorative locker room piece. He needs to be used with intelligence, with a smart rotation, with the interior helping collapse the pocket, with situational advantages. Because when Mack gets to the 4th quarter fresh, tackles start playing scared. On Pro Football Reference's unofficial list, which includes sacks going back to 1960, the mission would be much heavier. Mack is tied for 40th with 113, and he would have to match his career high of 17 sacks to reach Claude Humphrey's 130 at number 25. Hard? Absolutely. But the aggressive read is something else. If the Chargers want to be taken seriously, they have to turn this individual chase into collective impact. Legacy is beautiful. Pressure on the opposing quarterback on 3rd down is what wins games. When you stack all of this together, the demand is the same. The Chargers have pieces, They have the quarterback, they have heavyweight veterans, and they have young players begging for space. Now they have to turn it into answers. McDaniel cannot just promise creativity. He has to make Herbert, McConkey, and this offense punish defenses. The defensive line cannot be interesting. It has to be violent in the backfield. Najee deserves a fresh start, but Los Angeles has to move without sentimentality. And Mack chasing history has to become real pressure on Sundays. Pick a side in the comments. Is this roster ready to level up, or is one decisive piece still missing? Bolt up.